This famous story of the feeding of the 5,000 is one of the most important stories in the gospel, and we know that because it's one of the few stories that makes it into all four gospels. In fact, one of the gospels has it twice, the feeding of the 4,000 and the feeding of the 5,000. It's a big deal. In this version, I love this version because Jesus, as he often does, is kind of messing with his disciples. He says to Philip, "Hey, Philip, you see all those people? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to feed those people?" And Philip, our patron saint, says, I don't know what to do. Because Philip lives in the real world, the practical world, a world which is very familiar to you and me. For example, last week we had a wonderful newcomer picnic, and I want to thank where's John? John, the head of the greeters, and Sharon and all the greeters and vestry who helped out with that party. But when I was planning to buy chicken to barbecue for that party, I did not buy one piece of chicken and say, "Oh, it'll be enough," right? Because that's not how I'm wired. I estimated the number of people and the average amount of chicken that people would eat, and then I got a little extra, and then I went back to the store and got more because I was worried that we would run out, right? You know how that goes, because maybe I don't have enough faith. In fact, there was so much chicken that Susan and I have been enjoying that chicken all week long. Philip lives in a world that's familiar. It's the earthly economy, right? Where there's never quite enough. We're worried that we're going to run out. That is the core of Philip's worry. We're not going to have enough. And so he is panicking. But Jesus knows what he's going to do. Jesus is playing a long game with his disciples and with the crowd to get them to see the world in a different way, to leave behind the earthly economy of scarcity when there's not enough, and to begin to see what God's economy looks like, where there is enough and more for everyone. Andrew is maybe one step ahead of Philip here, because at least Andrew takes the step of inventorying what we got, right? So we were looking for, do we have enough paper product? We were inventorying before the party, what do we got? And then we'll see if we have enough. So at least Andrew says, well, I found this kid, and he's willing to give us what he has, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. But how is that going to work? Jesus says, relax. Just watch, take notes, pay attention. Here we go. He takes the bread and the fish, and he offers it. He gives thanks for it. He breaks it, and he distributes it. Does that ring a bell? Does that sound like something you've seen before or done before? Take some bread. Now, I know the Altar Guild is always grateful that we didn't include fish every Sunday in our Eucharist, right? So glad we don't have to worry about fish and cleaning up after fish. But this is the pattern that we still follow 2,000 years later, because we are still trying to get it. We're still trying to understand what it means to live in God's economy of abundance. And it's a struggle for us. It's a struggle for me to have that kind of faith, to really trust that we have everything we need and more, and that our purpose is to be able to share it and to experience the abundance of that loving community, right? Because that's what happened at that feeding of the 5,000. There was this miraculous multiplication. There wasn't just enough, there was an abundance. 12 baskets left over. The 12 baskets are the symbol of God's abundance. So I was thinking, a couple weeks ago we had a forum on solar power. We heard from the Stanishevskys, and we heard from Kathy, and I'm still waiting on mine, but Kathy said something that has been running around my mind for 2 weeks. She said, you know, when it comes to energy, where we're always worried about scarcity, we're not going to have enough energy, how's the grid going to hold up, right? We're always worried about scarcity. She said, all of our energy comes from one place. It comes from the sun. everything on earth has life because of the energy from the sun, right? All the plants on earth, us, everything, all comes from the sun. And, she said, the sun produces not just enough energy for the world, but in terms of our needs as human beings for energy, the sun sends us every day 10,000 times more than we need. Am I getting it right? I got it. All right, good. I was worried. When we have engineers and scientists, I want to get it right. 10,000, think about that. 10,000 times more than we need. If we ever needed a symbol of God's abundance, there it is. So what is our job? Our job is to learn to be clever about how do we receive that gift, how do we manage that gift, and how do we share and use that gift for the well-being of all. That's what Jesus was doing at the feeding of the 5,000, taking the gifts that were given and allowing that gift to multiply to have abundance for all. So I want us to think, if God is sending us 10,000 times more energy than we need, guess what else God is sending us? 10,000 times more love than we need. Because for a lot of us, the truly scarce resource is love. In a world that becomes so hard-hearted, where we're protecting ourselves, where we've learned to wall ourselves off, to protect ourselves from hurt, from broken relationships, from just meanness, so much meanness, right? God is sending us all the love we need and more. And what is our job? It is the very same, to accept that gift, to give thanks for it, to offer it, and to distribute it so that all can have enough. This can look all different ways. Susan and I, my wife, were at a vigil at the Church of the Messiah in East Detroit, a neighborhood, frankly, that knows all about scarcity, a neighborhood where there is crime and there is poverty and there is hopelessness, and yet a neighborhood that has come together thanks to the ministry in large part of that church and other churches that are working together to find and experience and share abundance. Church of the Messiah started an affordable housing program. They've been doing a lot of work on reducing gun violence. This vigil was about the terrible shooting that happened a couple weeks before that, and to pray for those families and victims and to work towards a more peaceful community. But they said, we've also learned that we can only do this together. So they have networked with all the different agencies and churches in that area, and they've looked at what are the assets. Where's the 5 loaves and the 2 fish? Well, this one church has an amazing feeding program. The Roman Catholic Church, through the St. Vincent de Paul Society, is feeding people. And Church of the Messiah said, well, we've got housing. We've got affordable housing. We'll keep working on that. Other groups have worked on other things. They had a problem with unsavory elements coming into the neighborhood, but since they had all started working together, they were able to organize and to repel some of those negative influences. It was a sign that even in the midst of terrible scarcity, in a place where many of us would say there is no hope, there are no resources, they have found an abundance that they can share with one another and find tremendous power in that abundance. When we started making our Vacation Bible School free several years ago, the spiritual formation team, this was a really strong issue for Jean Bale. She wanted us to have it free and open to everyone in the community. Well, how are we going to do that? At that time, we were dealing as a church with a lot of scarcity. We were having lots of financial issues, and we took a chance and began to make that free and got donations. And then we've experienced even more abundance. Now, the diocese gives us a grant to support that ministry. And so we are able to offer that as another sign of abundance. There are signs of abundance all around us. What we need are the eyes to see them. To go into the grocery store, not like me thinking there's not going to be enough, but instead to know that we have already received everything that we need and more. I want to give a shout out today to a family that I visited this week. One of our faithful parishioners, Jean Giddens, who used to sit right over there, who came to church. She lived in Rochester, and then she moved in with her daughter in Beverly Hills. And then her son-in-law's mother also moved in. Both Jean and Norma are dealing with some memory issues as they age, and they're feeling the loss, right? You can look at that and say, boy, we just are losing ground. I don't know if you feel that way as you age, but it's like every day I wake up and I feel like I have less than I did the day before, right? I can't move very well. My brain's not working so well. We experience more and more scarcity in this aging process. But Jean's daughter and son-in-law have an amazing capacity. They were able to see abundance where the rest of us might see scarcity. And they have created in their home a place where these two aging women can flourish. They've changed all the locks on the doors. They created a space like a gym where they can play catch with each other. The two moms have chores every day where they're putting away the dishes. They have signs all over the house. What day is it? What is on the agenda today? What's for dinner? What time is dinner? And those two beloved people, Norma and Jean, are truly thriving. It is so, I get choked up when I think about it, because it is not the experience for most of us, and yet thanks to their kids, these two moms are having a very different experience of memory loss and aging than most of us. They are experiencing true abundance in the kingdom of God. My prayer for all of us is that we might have that same vision, not necessarily to create a sort of home within our home for that. It doesn't have to look like that or anything else, but that we might begin to look at the world with different eyes, to see, instead of a place of fear and scarcity and negativity, instead to see that we are shining with the abundant love of God that is radiating upon us to the tune of 10,000-fold more than we need. More resources, more energy, more love, more community, and our sole job is simply to do what we do every Sunday, to take that gift, to give thanks for it, to bless it, to break it, and to share it. And our experience of abundance is dependent on our ability to do just that. May this be a time for us of God's true, glorious abundance. May we know the joy that Paul talks about in Ephesians, the breadth and the length and the height and the depth, that we might know the love of God that surpasses our understanding, so that we may be filled with all the fullness of God. That we may be filled with all the fullness of God. Amen.